us here have already raised our kids, but I expected that there would be some, and I see a few guys here that are still in the midst of that particular battle and challenge and blessing. And so I'm going to be, my remarks will mostly be pertinent to them, but I hope maybe the rest of us who might be grandfathers at this point, like I am, can find some help here as well. Again, my name is Jack Lynch. For those of you who don't know me, I've been married to my wife Lisa for 35 years. We're the parents of 5 adult children and 2 grandchildren, and we have twins on the way. We just found out a few weeks ago with our oldest son and his wife. I recently retired about a year and a half ago from a 35-plus year career in information systems, and currently work for Legatus as the chapter coordinator for the Ann Arbor chapter. And I want to say right up front here that virtually everything I'm going to share with you this morning, I learned from somebody else. And there are too many people to name them all, but I'm a sponge. I just get it where I can get it, and I use whatever I can find from whoever is able to give me some wisdom. And then the last thing I would say about the things I'm going to share with you this morning is that this was not all smooth sailing. I'm going to share 10 things that helped me as a father. But this was definitely not all smooth sailing. There were challenges, there were difficulties, bumps in the road, etc. So if it sounds like this was all just a bed of roses, that would not be the right perspective to have on it. So the one overarching theme of all that I tried to do as I was raising my children was to keep this in mind, that the salvation of their souls was the most important thing that I needed to remember throughout my time in raising my family. That this was the number one thing. It wasn't education, it wasn't sports or this or that, as important as those things might be. But it was the salvation of their souls, and everything I did was oriented towards helping them become faithful, passionate Catholic Christians. So, number one for me, generous prayer, personal prayer. That was my top priority, always has been my entire adult life virtually. First hour of every day for me is spent with the Lord in prayer and scripture. And I've got a quote from an unusual source, Muhammad Ali, that speaks to me and has been an inspiration to me as far as prayer goes. He wasn't talking about prayer. He said this: the victory is won far away from the lights and the crowd. On the highway, in the pain and solitude of preparation and discipline. I found that the pain of getting up early in the morning to pray and the solitude of being present with God were critical in handling the challenges that came my way as a father. So that's absolutely number one, generous time with the Lord in prayer. Number two, I tried the best I could, and I still try the best I can. I'm not perfect in this, of course, but to make my wife second only to God in my priorities. And for me, that meant a date night every week and a husband-wife meeting time every week, separate things. And that husband-wife meeting was a time to work out schedules and challenges with what's going on with the children and what's going on with this, that, the other thing, and finances and all that. But then, in addition to that, a date night where we try to have some fun together and possibly do something romantic. And a weekend away once a year with my wife, just to have some time to our own. That's the best we could do. The most we could afford was one weekend away. But we generally got that in every year. And in regard to priorities, I want to read a quote from Bill McCartney. You might remember Bill McCartney. He started the Promise Keepers men's movement and led the Colorado football team to a national championship. This is what he said in an interview he did with his own Promise Keepers magazine about regrets. He said this, I have one regret. While my wife was raising the kids. I was busy evenings drawing X's and O's with the other coaches. I was spending my time with someone else's kids. If I had it to do over again, and then here's the key line here, I would sacrifice professionally to be at home and help my wife raise our kids. Number 3, being generous in affection with our children, both verbally and physically. So I would tell the kids, and I still tell them. I tell my son, with one of my closest, I say, "You are my beloved son. Do him well, please." I tell my daughter, always remember, I just sent this to her email the other day, always remember how much I love you. And then hugs. I just think hugs are so important. And if some kids aren't, some are some more huggy than others, maybe just a little shoulder rub or something like that. But being generous and affection, and then giving them a formal blessing. My kids loved a formal blessing before they went to bed. And sometimes when I'd be going on a trip, I'd give them a blessing. And it was always for me, the Abrahamic blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. Be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you. Give you peace, that they make the sign of the cross on their heads. And they still talk about today how important that was for them. I'd be away from the house, and the kids would get on the phone, "Dad, can you give me your blessing?" over the phone. I can't tell you how important I think that is for a father. Number 4, one-on-one time. And I want to give a special thanks to Ralph Martin here, because he wrote something years ago that personal relationships develop one-on-one. And he was talking about prayer in particular. We need one-on-one time with the Lord, but also with people. This is where it gets worked out. I mean, it's great to have, men's groups and breakfasts like this and things like that. But one-on-one is where we really deepen our relationship. So for me, that meant a lunch or a breakfast once a month with each of the kids as they're growing up. We still do this today with all my adult kids. I still get together with them once a month for breakfast or lunch. And then another time set aside during the month just to have some kind of fellowship time together, do something fun together. I'm going to be reading several quotes from John Paul II, his document, Familiaris Consortio, which he wrote after a synod. I think it was like 1989, something like that. I'm going to read several quotes from that. But one quote from that is this. He said, "The time we have with our children passes so quickly. Do not let your children become strangers under your own roof." And it's where, as I said, relationships are built. And here's another quote I wanted to share with you from Steve Wood. He founded St. Joseph Covenant Keepers. You may be familiar with that. Steve Wood said this, said, "My background as a Protestant youth minister showed me one thing above all. The people who want a hearing from the kids are the ones who spent time with them." So one-on-one time. Number 5, family time. Family meals together every day. If I wasn't traveling, I was home for dinner every night with the family. Family reading. We read books together after supper. Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, lots of books. And that helped to create a real shared frame of reference for us, so we could talk about these things together, reference them in our everyday life. Family prayer. We used an abbreviated version of the Liturgy of the Hours for a long time. The Rosary, and my favorite, the Lord's Day ceremony. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, if you go to the men's retreat, I'm sure that we're going to do that on the men's retreat for Saturday night. But this special time every Saturday night, bringing the family together, having dinner together, and doing the Lord's Day ceremony was a tremendous, tremendous blessing, and we still do it today. John Paul II, again from Familiaris Consortio. "Only by praying together with their children can a father and mother, exercising their royal priesthood, penetrate the innermost depths of their children's hearts and leave an impression that the future events in their lives will not be able to efface. Number 6, asking forgiveness. Much as I wanted to do a perfect job in raising my kids and be perfectly patient all the time, that didn't happen. And I found that asking their forgiveness when I did something wrong was absolutely crucial in maintaining a good relationship with them. So if I was impatient, if I lost my temper, setting a good example for them, saying, you know, John, I'm sorry I lost my temper there. Will you forgive me? And having him say, yes, Dad, I forgive you. Very, very important. And it set a good example for them. And when they did something wrong, they would do the same with me. They would say, Dad, I'm sorry I did that. Will you forgive me? And that was very important for us. And another one of my favorites, and this one I can't hardly emphasize enough. Number 7, fun, fun, fun. Family nights, trips, vacations, movies, boys groups. You know, St. Thomas More hired a jester to come in and try to lighten things up in his family. For us, our jesters were Steve Martin and Peter Sellers. And some of the stuff with Steve Martin I'd have to clean up, so it worked for the family. But with all this intense spiritual stuff going on, just mixing in the fun, I think, was so critical for us as a family, and I can't hardly emphasize the importance of that. Number 8, confession. We told the kids, you want to go to confession? We will get you there. Hands down, no questions asked, no matter what is going on. I don't care if the ball game is on. If the ball game is on, you want to go to confession, I will get you there. I don't care if it's Michigan, Ohio State, and this is true. You want to go to confession, you will get there. If Mom can't get you there, I have to leave the game, I will do that. And I never had to leave in a Michigan-Ohio State game, but I did have to leave at other games to get them to confession. And they knew, you want to go, we're going to make sure you get there. Number 9, education and evangelization. We were open with our own faith and talked about it naturally with our kids. We never wanted to get into the mentality that it's up to somebody else. It's up to the CCD program. It's up to the high school. It's up to anybody else. We took the attitude that we were responsible for passing on the faith to our kids. And sometimes that meant some kind of informal, formal instruction, if you will. For my youngest 3 kids, our oldest 2 children, 2 sons, went to Gabriel Richard with the great Father Lobert, so they got some really good training there. But with my younger 3 kids, who we homeschooled much of the way, I took them through the catechism myself. And a 4-year block when they were going through their high school years. We sat down, I read the catechism to them, and then we just have this little informal discussion about it, and I would explain things, and they would be drinking a soft drink or something. It was really low key, but it worked very well. Again, from John Paul II, Familiaris Consortio. Hence, parents must be acknowledged as the first and foremost educators of their children. Their role as educators is so decisive that scarcely anything can compensate for their failure in it. And number 10, praying for grace. Total dependence on God. Frequently, when I was with the children, spending time with them, and I still do this now also, I would just ask for God's grace as we went off to do something together. So if we were going to have lunch or breakfast, on the way I'd just be praying silently, Lord, give me the grace to spend this time well with my son and my daughter. Help me to be fully present to them, mentally, emotionally. Don't let me be distracted by work concerns, but let me be fully present. Give me the grace to spend this time well with them. So those are 10 things that helped me. And as I was finishing up working on the talk, I realized there was a number 11 bonus item. So I'm going to share that one with you too. This is actually, this is your bonus for the day. And that is the importance of men's groups or a buddy to meet regularly with throughout the time raising our kids, and still now. I've almost always either been part of a men's group or had a buddy that I got together with on a weekly basis and shared with. And that has been, it continues to be a great source of encouragement and perspective for me. So I'm going to close my comments here one more time with a quote from Familiaris Consortio. John Paul II in that document said, "The future of humanity passes by way of the family." The future of humanity passes by way of the family. So brothers, let's give it all we've got and be faithful and offer all that God gives us to lead our families in the way He wants us to.